Welcome back to the Now Morning Show. April is observed locally as Child Abuse Awareness Month and Prevention Month also. And joining us in studio is no stranger to the Now Morning Show, team lead Ahelia Ramdas from the from the Children's Authority of Trinidad and Tobago, to discuss this morning the resources and, of course, a little bit more. Ahelia, good morning and welcome back.
Good morning and thank you so much. You guys said April has been an extremely busy month. The last few days completely hectic, but we appreciate the opportunity to wrap up this conversation. Very important one.
Definitely
at
is.
that.
Yeah, definitely is an important conversation. Before we get in depth though, one of the things we're speaking about, of course, are resources particularly. And we always hear this conversation about resources being available, but can we dive straight into access to resources and availability?
So there are lots of resources available, and I say lots, cautiously. There are resources available in the public domain for parents who may be struggling. So National Family Services, of course, they do provide a lot of parenting training, parenting sessions, and those are always available, freely available to the public. We also have student support services out of the Ministry of Education that they do parenting and education classes through their social work unit. Just generally parents having access to psychologists, guidance officers, social workers through SSSD. If you are having challenges with your child, you can, of course, reach out to these individuals and access that help through the schools and through the ministry, which, of course, is free. We also do have a lot of resources at the Children's Authority. So if you go onto our website, you're going to see a lot of information. If you follow us on social media, both Instagram and Facebook, you're going to find a lot of content as well for parents, guiding them along in the various, challenges that they may face with children. For themselves, of course, upskilling themselves as parents, because as we know, parenting, it's not static, it is dynamic, it's changing as we go along. And so it's so important to tune into those avenues. And of course, if parents themselves are struggling, so if it's a situation that is outside of, it's not really the child, you yourself are struggling in your parenting role, of course you can access assistance through community mental health. You can go privately, Trinidad and Tobago Association of Psychologists, they have their online directory. You can reach out to a private practitioner to get some sort of assistance and help to get you through that. So many things available. Childline also has wonderful courses from time to time that are available to the public. You go on to their website, you see what they have going on, and you just sign up for it. And it's all virtual. So I want to encourage parents to, get online, ask the questions. When you go to the health center, when you go to the doctor, ask, hey, where can I get a little extra help? And, you have that opportunity to get that assistance, get that information, and really, try your best. So many different associations, for autism and all of these different things. These associations also do put out a lot of courses, a lot of information. It's all there. Just go online, search it up. And, you can access all of that most of the times for free.
Right. And that's what it's really about this month, making sure that people are aware of these resources that exist. But we also want to make distinctions between what they need to be aware of within themselves. So getting into the conversation or the meat of the matter then, can we give some alliance or the link at least between poor parenting practices and abuse? Because they're not the same thing, but one does affect the other.
Yeah, so having challenges yourself as a parent, so whether it's that these are the practices that you have known all your life, that you've grown with, and you're just repeating the cycle, whether you are struggling with mental health concerns yourself, all of these things places a child at a higher risk, or can place a child, and I say can because you guys know I love to put that disclaimer out there, within the realm of possibilities of things that could happen. It's not a guarantee that it will happen, so many factors to consider. But it can put a child at a higher risk for neglect or abuse if you as the parent are engaging in poor parenting practices, or you are struggling with mental health concerns, because that places you in the position where at times, let's say you're struggling, you're overwhelmed, you're struggling with just the task
life
and going to work and managing bills and your children. And, emotionally, you are not regulating yourself, which puts you at the risk of overreacting or reacting in a way that places the child at risk for you, the parent, crossing the line. between discipline and punishment. You know, if you are struggling with mental health concerns, let's say something like depression, your energy is low, you don't have that time or the internal resources to throw behind your children, of course, they're at a higher risk of neglect there. If you're struggling with concerns like substance use or bipolar or schizophrenia, you're at risk of, you know, if you're not managing your mental health well, you're at risk of potentially having cognitive distortions or challenges that impair your ability in terms of judgment and making decisions, and even identifying that, hey, let's say you're under a lot of stress, you've had a bit of a break from reality, you don't know if your own child is a risk to you, you act out toward them, and so again, they're at a greater risk. So it's really encouraging parents, whether you have a diagnosed mental health concerns, whether it's just the everyday average challenges that are overwhelming you, as parents and even as professionals, even as a psychologist, you need to know your limits. You need to know when you're getting to that point where it's too much, I need some help, let me reach out and get that help.
I particularly appreciate that you underscored knowing your limits, be it as a parent or otherwise, because we often think of parents in silos, but it takes a village, as we say. The adults who interact with these children as well will need to be cognizant of their likeliness to, unfortunately, put these children at risks as well. And so what I'm hearing is definitely identifying when you might be susceptible to that, knowing yourself, and perhaps having, if you do, a little bit of a go-to or some tips on how we could probably identify, this mightn't be the right time, or I might need some help and tap into those resources. What cues should we look for or be mindful of?
So I want to say to parents that parenting is a job, it's a hard one, it's a huge responsibility, and from time to time you're going to struggle. And that's okay. It doesn't make you a bad parent. It doesn't make you a bad person. And so we want to be aware when we start to feel overwhelmed or stressed out by the task of parenting, that we pay attention to that, because it really does have an impact on our children. You may not be able to appreciate the direct link. You may not always be able to see it, but children are perceptive. They know when something is off. They know when their parents are distracted or going through something, and it does affect them. It may cause some children to seek more attention, which you just simply don't have the resources to give to them, which then spirals into something that, you know, is potentially harmful for the child or impacts the child's confidence or, you know, self-esteem and these things. So as parents, we want to know when we feel tired, when we feel overwhelmed. Pay attention to that. That's saying something to you. That's saying that you need to take a step back, right? When we realize that we're raising our voice a little too often with our children, with our spouses, with our colleagues, with our peers, you know, pay attention. Why is that happening? You know, so we need to pay attention. Really, be mindful of ourselves, what our bodies are saying to us, because of course stress can manifest physically, right? The aches and pains, you know, the everything that passes on the wind, you're picking it up. We want to be mindful of our sleeping habits when we have those disturbances. All of those things contribute to how well we navigate the things that we have to. So we want to just be mindful of that. As parents, I want to encourage you to create your village. You know, we always talk about it on this show that the village that we thought about and talked about back in the day is not the same.
Definitely.
It's not that same geographical area where your child is walking down the street and everybody is looking out for them. Everybody is calling them out if they see something is going on. People are afraid to do that now. And so now you have to create that space. It doesn't have to be blood relatives. It could be good friends. It could be good neighbors, trusted adults. So please do your research. The persons that you are pulling into your circle that's going to help you fill those gaps if they do come up. Be mindful of what their track records are with children, what their views and personal beliefs are when it comes to children and raising children. All of these things are so important for us to be mindful of. So do that. You know, take your little breaks. It's really not a sign of you being a bad person, bad parent. If you say to yourself, I need a night out, and I'm going to call up my good friend, I'm going to call up my sister, I'm going to call up my mom, come take a look at the kids, let me go out and just relax a little bit. That's a good practice, taking those breaks when you need it. And I want to say this as well, going to therapy, going to counseling is not reserved for persons who have mental health disorders or challenges. Sometimes a nice check-in with someone to help you reframe things, help you gain perspective, it goes a long way to just
sure.
recenter and balance yourself.
I think recently it went viral that the research has shown a 12-minute conversation with a friend actually significantly helps one's mental health. So 12 minutes with a phone call could
Social
definitely
connection,
help.
that connectivity, it does help. So even if it's not a professional, like you say, call up a friend, have a nice chat. You know,
Definitely
really
going back
help.
to that village for sure.
Yeah, you know, some of the main themes we're seeing resonating here, of course, speaking about access to resources and so much more, but we're seeing mental health consistently coming into the conversation. As you said, not necessarily suffering from a mental health disorder, a chemical imbalance, but just being stressed out with everyday life. But in general, we do see that we do have quite a few of those walking around living with some sort of chemical imbalance, particularly. And it's something that they see is a genetic predisposition and can be passed on to the children. Do you have any tips for parents who are already going through so much and may not necessarily see those cues when your child starts to display, for example, depression and so much more? How do we differentiate between the child who comes home and says, I don't want to go to school because I'm being bullied, and the child who says that but is also really suffering from depression? What resources can we give to parents to say, all right, this is something that you need to pay keen attention to so we can be preventative instead of reactive?
So we come right back to another thing that I always love to say, it's about knowing a child, right? That's the best foundation for you to know if something is off or something is wrong with your child or children. You have to have a solid, genuine relationship with them and know who they are as individuals, to be able to tell when it's typical developmental things, typical disturbances with something that might be happening in school, or it's something that's really impacting their ability to function. You have to know them. And then it comes all the way back to resources. As a parent, you cannot take it for granted that you magically will know every single thing. Yes, you have that intuition. Yes, you have that gut feeling that something might be wrong with your child, but you have to also equip yourself with the information. So you need to seek out the resources to learn. If you know that there's a family link, right? And then, of course, there is the side of the genetic predisposition, but of course, there's also the side of the environment and what we expose a child to and all of these things that could contribute to developing mental health challenges as well. And again, it's like I say, can and not will, right? Because there's so many other factors that impact it. But if you are in possession of the information, you know what the signs are, you know what to do in the event that you notice particular things, then it's gonna put you in a better position to respond, to ensure that you get that kind of help that your child may need. Of course, it comes back to you as well. If you know that it's a familial thing, if you know that you do struggle with mental health concerns in your family, how are you modeling how you manage your own challenges for your child? Because if you are open and honest about it, if you are going to your therapy sessions, if you're on medication and you're taking your medication responsibly and your child is seeing that, they're going to know it's not something to hide, it's not something to shy away from. I'm going to come to you, I'm going to talk to you, this is what I'm experiencing, and you're going to be able to work it through.
Yeah. Ahelia, we're continuing the conversation, moving away from mental health, but going to access to resources. As you mentioned, there are a plethora of resources that are available online, in person, and so much more from numerous different organizations, not just yourself. But one of the things that we also witness is that there appears to be a gap, not necessarily on behalf of those who are providing the information, but those who know it's there, they have the access, but are just not making that link. In your experience, are there any particular factors that contribute to that?
The major contributing factor to that access, from having it available and getting it, actually going and getting it, of course, remains the stigma that surrounds all of these concerns around mental health, around challenges with your children. So where it comes to mental health and accessing those resources, there's a level of denial, secrecy, shame, all of these things. And so if I go access this, people are going to think something is wrong with me. They're going to make these judgments about me, and I prefer that not happen. So I'm just going to suffer in silence. I'm just going to stay here on my own. When it comes to your children, it's of course the same thing. I am the parent. I know what is best. I can do this. I don't need someone else telling me how to parent my child or what my child needs. And so it's about that mindset shift. And this entire month, and every time we do sensitizations and we do media and we go out into the public spaces, we underscore and we express upon parents how important it is for us as a society to change our mentality and our mindsets where children are concerned. Children are unique individuals. holding space, right? And, we have to change how we see them. We have to change how we value children, and we have to change how we approach this thing called parenting and giving care to children, because like we always say, it's not the same children, it's not the same issues that from a decade ago, from 5 years ago. And we have to evolve as everything evolves. As new challenges pop up, as new research pops up, we have to be able to move with the times. So as a society, we need to acknowledge that children are deserving of a space, that they are deserving of value, that they have rights. And as adults, as caregivers, we need to respect that, and we need to do what we need to do to step up. And if we lead, we always talk about the youths and how they're doing this and that and the other. We need to start leading by example. So if we don't want our children to be out in the streets cussing and fighting, then we need to be able to know that we can't do that. We can't show them that that's the response or reaction to certain things, So model the appropriate lifestyle on the whole, and our children will follow.
So as much as this is the month for child abuse awareness and prevention, these conversations will continue because it is a process. And so thank you very much for continuing to do the work, for continuing to share the information, and for being a resource that we can certainly tap into.
Thank you so much for having us. We are always happy to be here. So we're looking forward to the next time.
Until the next one, we are going to take a break and have even more information that you want here on the Now Morning Show. Come back after these messages.
Not late.